We have with us Neha Bagaria, who is the founder and CEO of Jobs for Her, an online platform to connect women with companies, community, and skilling to start, restart, and rise in their careers. Over the last 5 years, Jobs for Her has worked with over 1.7 million women, 7,000 plus companies, 1,000 plus mentors, and 400 plus reskilling partners across India to enable women to accelerate their careers. Jobs for Her is not Neha's first entrepreneurial venture. Right after she graduated from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, Neha founded her first company, Paragon, an educational startup to bring the advanced placement program to India. When marriage took her to Bangalore, she started working with Chembell, a biopharmaceutical manufacturing company in the fields of HR, finance, and marketing strategy. Neha took a 3.6-year break in her own career when she had her two children. During this personal journey, she became aware of the various difficulties a woman faces in order to re enter the workforce. She then became committed to the cause of enabling women to accelerate their careers and founded Jobs for Her on International Women's Day 2015. Neha has been listed in Forbes India's W Powered Trailblazers list of 25 groundbreaking women achievers as a game changer and innovator who is shattering stereotypes, and was also featured in Deccan Herald as 19 changemakers to watch out for in 2019. Neha considers Sheryl Sandberg, Chief Operating Officer of Facebook and founder of leanin.org, to be her biggest source of inspiration, and her two children to be the biggest source of joy. Neha is an avid reader and traveler and enjoys time spent in the company of family and close friends. Welcome, ma'am. We are glad to have you here on this Back to eVidya webinar series.
Thank you, Anand. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have collected a number of questions from our, people who we are in touch with, our volunteers, our employees, and other stakeholders. So I'll put across these questions, and please share your views. We would be really glad to hear it. Okay. So the first is a very generic or very common, very relevant question. What changes are you seeing regarding work from home?
Sure, Anand, I think, in every crisis, there does lie opportunity. And no matter, of course, how difficult these situations are and how much we would always rather that we were not in this situation, the big opportunity that has come out from this crisis has been that companies have realized now that work from home is actually a very strong way of working. It's helping boost productivity levels, it's helping keeping employee engagement high, and more and more companies are realizing that they can have permanent talent force in their workplaces which will work from home. And over the last 5 years of running Jobs for Her, I've always seen that there are a huge number of women in India who, whether it is for geographical reasons, time-bound reasons, any dependencies at home, many of them want to opt for work from home, but the opportunities were just not there in the market. And especially when it comes to more lucrative and more meaty roles that were being offered as work from home. That, I think, has been a fundamental shift that has happened during this COVID time.
Thank you, ma'am. So again, in the same context, do the new normal and work from home options, do they seem to give more opportunities to young returning mothers, homemakers? What is your view on that?
Sure. Yeah, so the thing is that, in many cases, I mean, there might be some dependency at home. There might be little children. There might be a sick parent or in-law. Uh, More and more families are living in nuclear families where there aren't that many family members to even help. In all these situations, women require jobs that will allow them to participate in the workplace but still be able to work from home. And until now, companies do not feel like a talent pool of people working from home are going to be able to be productive or contribute significantly to their work. That is a big shift.
Thank you. Next is a very interesting question. Indian women do 10 times more unpaid care work than Indian men. So, what can we do as a society to change this and encourage, couples, especially those who work from home, to split the list or the load?
Yeah, again, I see this current situation as a huge opportunity to drive the change that our generation has been trying to drive. Yeah, I think when it comes to our previous generation, our mother's generation, they drove the change of ensuring that the girl child also gets the education, as high an education as a boy child does. So if you see at our graduation level, we have almost equal number of female graduates as there are male graduates. However, in our generation, it has become extremely important that we drive the change that is required for women to be able to be equal participants in the workforce as well. And one of the most important changes that need to be done to ensure that is that the family support is required, the family structures need to change, the dynamics in the family need to change if that woman wants to contribute equally to the workforce. And that, frankly, has gotten exacerbated during this quarantine period when, in many families, because the woman was at home and was suddenly now working from home, they felt that, oh, if she's at home, then great, she can take care of all the household work that there is. Of course, the husband doesn't need to do it because he has a job, right? And again, I think it's there are lots of things at play over here. One is kind of family societal expectations, which is that we kind of assume that any work related to the household or to kids or to family rest completely on the woman's shoulders. That has to change. Second is that, you know what, if you think about it, it is sheer economics. If that husband's job is if that husband is the main breadwinner of the family, his job, his career will always get more importance than the woman's job or woman's career. Because from the family point of view, they need him to be able to thrive in his career so that he can support the family for all their needs. So as soon as that woman also starts leaning into her career, also starts bringing in enough salary home, immediately the family will start rallying around her because they will need that income. And again, the opportunity today is that the big crisis where there are so many job losses happening, families require that they do not rely only on one breadwinner. Suddenly that woman's career has become extremely important from a family sustainability point of view. And as soon as that happens, this is the opportunity to have that conversation with the family and tell them that, hey, for me to be able to thrive in my career, which is good for the family, this is what I need from the family. I need you to realize that even though I'm at home, I need to be working for my job, for my career during this hour to this hour, and I will not be able to tend to these household duties. You need to have that conversation with your husband and divvy up the work that is suddenly piled up at home in terms of who will take care of breakfast, who will take care of lunch, who will take care of the cooking, who will take care of the cleaning. I mean, it is at the end of the day, if you want double income in the family, there have to be dual responsibilities for the home as well.
Right. So this has actually provided an opportunity, in addition to putting us in a constraint, for people to see this, experience this way of splitting work and sharing the responsibilities. So, given the current situation, that is considering that work from home is the new normal or would be the new normal, do you think there should be an increased organizational focus on measuring employee productivity? How do organizations deal with that? We have seen the home
that's
side.
a great question. See, I mean, this is again a big shift that needs to happen from a company point of view. Yeah, companies are not used to operating like this, and a lot of it stems from the fact that during earlier, what you had was the industrial revolution, right? During the industrial revolution, and when you have these huge manufacturing lines, there were no possibilities of working from home. Even today,
Right.
if you look at the manufacturing industry, you can't work from home. You need people on the shop floor, operating those machines and packaging and supply chain and all of that. But the big change has happened because of the technological revolution. Yeah. Now that there's a technological revolution, that doesn't require your physical presence in an office space. And that has already been creating a shift in companies when it comes to the future of jobs. Even for the last 5 years that we have been in business, we have been having very active discussions with companies, with HR professionals to make them realize that, look, flexible jobs, work from home jobs are a trend of the future. They need to jump on that bandwagon. Now what COVID has done is things that were, were under discussion for years are in a matter of minutes, they've had to figure it out. Yeah.
Fast
Because
track.
they had to make sure, they had to make sure that work doesn't come to a screeching halt. So suddenly, when everybody was under lockdown, they got their whole act in order to be able to manage working from home. Now, the big shift that is required to be made is from a mindset perspective. Yeah, is for managers to realize that you don't have to have somebody working under your nose to know that they are working. Yeah. Also for managers to realize that just because one person is, say, working for 10 to 12 hours in the office, coming in on Saturdays also, Sundays also, doesn't mean he's a better worker than a woman who has to go home, say, at 5:30 p.m. because she has to pick up her kid from daycare and make dinner, etc. But is giving you far better results in her deliverables. So now the whole shift that is happening with work from home is, one, to allow more accountability on the in the hands of the employee, because you can't monitor that completely. You have to be trust and assume that when that employee is saying they're working, because unless you're putting a CCTV camera in their houses and monitoring whether they're on their computer and checking what is on their computer, you can never know for sure. So this leads to far higher accountability. And two, you have to be able to judge performance on the basis of deliverables and not on the basis of face time. The quality of work becomes far more important than the quantity of hours that an employee is spending. And all these shifts in the way we judge performance will hugely benefit women. Because in an overall point of view, the only thing that was holding women back was the fact that, hey, they needed their weekends, they needed their evenings, they needed their early mornings to tend to their families and household needs. Now, if they can prove their mettle by showing the quality of work, it will do wonders for their performances.
Right. So essentially, the focus has shifted from, like you said, from FaceTime or the act of working to actually producing the results. So, in your experience and in your observation, do you think this particular situation actually leads to or forces people to more productivity, personal productivity in that sense?
There are lots of reports that have come out which show that productivity levels have actually gone up during this quarantine period. And there are lots of reasons for that. One, think about the amount of hours we are all saving when we don't have to commute. Yeah, I mean, in a city like Bangalore, frankly, commuting could easily eat up like 2 to 3 hours in a day. Minimum of 1 to 1.5 hours one-way trip to your office. Now, that 2 to 3 hours can be put into actual productive work, which is incredible. Second, there is a lot of work that you need to do as an individual contributor, which you'll be able to do much more productively when you are sitting with your computer and with no distractions. Yeah. Third, I think also because people are fearful of job losses, they have been putting in even more of their effort to ensure that they prove their mettle to their companies and they prove their worth to their companies. Yeah. So for all these reasons, we have definitely seen a jump in productivity during this time. But where work from home doesn't work and where it does impact you slightly negatively is when it comes to, for example, strategy meetings or brainstorming that needs to be done, where there is a lot of group think required, where there's very high intensity coordination required between different people and different departments. And the most important is where the bonding comes into place. Yeah. One of the big benefits of working in an office is also bonding with your other colleagues and learning from your peers. That is something that is definitely taking a backseat when everybody's under quarantine and work from home.
Right. That is, those are the softer aspects that we do not notice visibly, but maybe over time we will be able to, actually sense that.
Yeah, because like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all teamwork, right? And for that teamwork to happen successfully, you need to build strong relationships with your colleagues. And it's very tough to build strong relationships when you're going from just one meeting to another and you're just talking about work, work, work. And you're not, being able to like grab coffee with that colleague, chat with them casually at the water cooler in the pantry, find out what's happening in their lives and their families. So a lot of companies are making a lot of effort to also do a lot of these virtual social hangouts
And
amongst employees so that they can keep that engagement going.
okay, that is interesting, and that is food for thought for all the viewers also. So, pegging along with the previous question of couples sharing the load and all, we have one question that says, "What is your stance on share the mental load?" Of course, the work can be, I can say, you cook, I cook, that can be done. But what about the mental load? How is that handled? And please throw some light on that.
Very interesting question, and I'm assuming that a lot of our participants are women. Yeah, so I'm going to actually give the contrarian response to this, which is that this works both ways. Yeah, I think, frankly, one of the biggest beneficiaries of a woman working is her husband. Because imagine the kind of mental load and stress that a man goes through if he is the primary or the sole breadwinner of the house. Yeah, that's not a very happy position to be in. It's a very difficult position to be in. And I think it's time that we start looking at that spousal relationship as a partnership. Yeah. This is not a competition between the husband and wife in terms of who is doing better in their career. This is actually a partnership because when one does well, automatically the other is also doing better. Yeah. So I feel that so I feel it's extremely important that yes, we share the load when it comes to household chores and duties, but I absolutely agree with you that we have to share the mental load. And here there might be a far bigger mental load when it comes to the man's career point of view if he is the primary and sole breadwinner of the family.
Right. I hope that is a satisfying answer for the person who raised the question. We have another question that has come up that says, do we see an increase in the trend of women being re-employed after the COVID thing? Has there been a spike, or has there been, how has it been?
Not yet. I think it's too early to say that because right now, from a company point of view, jobs itself are at a low, right? So, I mean, if you look at the companies, even on our platform, we are seeing a huge spectrum of companies. On one side, there are industries like, say, aviation, hospitality, tourism, travel, where they are announcing major job cuts, yeah, huge job losses. In the middle, there are companies like manufacturing, retail, FMCG, etc., who have been hit negatively in a short run, but in the medium term, they will be able to recover. Yeah. So they haven't been announcing job cuts, but many of them have been looking at pay cuts to reduce the burden, the financial burden during this time. So forget hiring. Yeah, hiring, there are hiring freezes usually in those sectors. It's the tech companies. There are some sectors like tech, pharma, healthcare, etc., who are seeing a pretty big surge happening because their need has actually gone up. Those are the ones who are right now looking at hiring, looking at increments, looking at appraisals, and are benefiting hugely from the kind of talent that has now come into the market because of all the job losses that are happening. Yeah.
Right. So
Given
they,
all this, yeah, so given all this, the number of jobs in the system have definitely declined, which means that or like already the pie is smaller. So it's more and more difficult for a woman who wants to restart her career to be able to find like a plethora of opportunities, as they did earlier, by the way. Yeah.
Right.
That being said, okay, uh, if they can prove themselves, if they can show that they have the capabilities for that particular skill set, and that you can get just by upskilling yourself. Yeah. So upskilling has become extremely important in today's day and age to be able to grab a job, because the jobs of the future require you to be upskilled in the latest technologies, in the latest trends, and those are the areas where companies are looking at increasing their workforce.
Right. Thank you. We have the next one, which is sort of it counters what was earlier asked. Also, the new work from home feels like living at work. How can
Yes.
one limit the working hours to, not as to cannibalize the other part of life?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, and so like I've also heard this. Instead of working at home, I'm living at work now. But yeah, I think it's very important that we set boundaries. Yeah, so if we really want to successfully work from home, there are like a few tips and tricks that I have figured out over these last 3 4 months, and I'm happy to share those with you.
Oh, please.
First and foremost, yeah, it's very important that you kind of set your time frames and your boundaries. Now, somebody's job might require them to work more than 8 hours a day. If that's the case, also, and by the way, this happened with my own, some of my own women technologists who are in my tech team. When I found out that they were like, we had some important releases happening and they were working round the clock. So much so that one of them told me later, and later on I found out there was her son's birthday and she didn't even get to celebrate it, and I was appalled to hear it. Yeah. And I had to sit them down and help them figure out how they can find balance. And these are members of the Jobs for Her team.
Okay.
So one of the things that I shared with them was that, one, you got to set boundaries around your work. Okay, so be very clear with your manager from what time to what time you will be online and be available. So for example, in their case, from 9:30 to 6:30 p.m. Okay, they would be available. They're working at their laptops with a 1 hour lunch break in between. Again, be clear about what time that lunch break will also be, so that there are no meetings, etc., set up during that time, and you get that time with your family. Now, after 6:30 to say 9:30 p.m., be clear that this is my time with my kids and my family, and I cannot be disturbed then unless and until there's an emergency. Yeah. Then let them know that then if there is any other pending work, okay, I will re-log in from say 9:30 to 11 p.m. Yeah. So, and these are on days where there are important releases happening. Otherwise, your work day should end at 6:30 p.m. Okay. Now, once, of course, the CEO had told them this, the manager didn't have a choice but to listen. Okay. But this is a conversation that anybody can have in a very nice way with your manager, where you're not telling them that, hey, sorry, I can only work these many hours. I'm not going to be available after that. You're being very open and honest that these are the hours in the day that you need for your family and your household responsibilities. Okay. And then also, once you have planned it out, you will feel less guilty when you're working. If you're working and somebody needs you at home, but these are your work hours, you will feel less guilty saying no to that. You will also feel less guilty that when you're at home, when you're with your family, you're always at home. When you're with your family and some work call comes and you don't take it, you won't feel guilty about that either, because those hours are supposed to be your hours with your family. So I think planning this out, discussing it with your manager, and then actually sticking to it are extremely important. Second big tip is that find a corner, find a space in the house which is your workspace. Okay, so that when you're in your workspace, everybody in the house knows that she is working. Yeah, and which means that you don't disturb her then. Okay, unless and until it's very important. If a phone call comes and you see that she's in a workspace, means that you don't like give it to her. You tell that person that she's working. And then when you're done with your work, you leave your workspace.
Okay.
So then you actually are not living at work. Okay. Because when you're working, you go into your workspace. When you're not working, you leave your workspace. And that way, you also have some mental relaxation from the fact that, okay, I was working then, now I'm not working, okay, even though you're in the same house. So third thing actually is to ensure that during the day at some point, you are finding some me time. Okay. And I know this is a very big ask because we are busy juggling so many priorities, but it's a very, very important ask. And that me time doesn't even have to be for 1 hour long. Okay, even if it's for 10 minutes, say it could be going for a walk, it could be chanting, meditating, it could be doing your exercise, it could be just sitting quietly in the garden, it could be chatting with your friends. Okay, whatever it is that gives you pleasure, happiness, is important to get on a daily basis, because that will rejuvenate you and refuel you to be able to take care of all these other responsibilities.
Right. All the three things that you have mentioned, they are very, I mean, though they are, when people think about it, they sort of understand the rationale behind it, but it is important that we follow it. For example, being fair to both work and responsibilities at home, that will give people a lot of peace actually. So you're not guilty throughout the day for not doing the other part. That is a very
Exactly.
bad position to be in. And the other one of having a dedicated space is sort of like mentally or in a on a subconscious level, or even conditioning your family members to see it as an office space. That place is for work. So when you are there, it is respected that you are actually at your office. That these are fantastic ideas. Thank you for this these tidbits. We have one question that says that is micromanagement now a thing of the past? Do you think we have graduated to measuring the, means we have answered this, that it's more about the output. So how
Yeah,
do
but
people,
I
how,
wouldn't jump to thing of the past yet.
right, so how do people who have been used to managing that way, what do you uh, tell them who
Yeah. So I recently had a chat, in fact, with one of the employers on our portal. Yeah. And she is used to hiring a lot of millennials, okay, a lot of
okay,
fresh graduates, etc. And she's in Bombay, and she was sharing with me about how, that right now, it's still okay because everything is shut. There are no coffee shops to go to. There is no outside distraction, etc. So she feels that that's why the team has been, performing very productively even while working from home. But she's very worried that as Bombay starts opening up, but they continue working from home, how can she ensure that her employees are actually working during work hours? Yeah. And she was considering using tools, for example, like Time Doctor. I don't know how many of you know it, but Time Doctor is something that the employee has to install in their laptops. It keeps note of exactly when you have logged in, when you have logged out. It takes random screenshots of your computer while you're working, okay, and sends it to the manager so that they can check, was this person actually working or, on something else.
the office is
Uh,
better that way then?
yeah, it checks whether, the computer has suddenly gone idle for some time. So it is as much micromanagement as it can be. Yeah.
Right.
I think there are still plenty of managers like that, still plenty of bosses like that. It's not going to disappear overnight, but it is not a trend of the future. Yeah, you will start seeing that it will become tougher and tougher for it will be actually a waste of time for managers to be micromanaging their employees to such an extent, when they could have used that same time to actually motivate them, engage them, inspire them to put in their best at work.
Right.
Imagine using that same time and effort to instead get them to be self motivated to deliver at work. Yeah. So, for example, at Jobs for Her, first of all, I'm proud to say this, that we are a company where we are 85% are women and most of them are mothers. And I feel that when it comes to just this genre, and this is a very, very big stereotype that I'm going to say right now, I have a lot of positive bias. Okay.
Okay.
But when it comes to mothers, I feel like there's just a much higher degree of accountability and responsibility that they have. Yeah. And when they say that they're going to do something, they usually do it. And at a company like Jobs for Her, we are not like school teachers. Oh, I'm speaking to school teachers. Yeah, you'll use micromanaging your kids, right? Your students. We've got to we've got to assume that once somebody has entered the workforce, they are adults. Yeah, they should be able to manage themselves. I also think that when you expect that level of accountability and responsibility from your team, you will get that. If you're not, and you will also recruit for that. Yeah,
Right.
you will also alter your recruitment process to ensure that the people you're getting in are extremely accountable and responsible, and that will set the whole cycle of reducing micromanagement. So this is a huge hope that micromanagement will continue going down, but it's not going to go away overnight.
Right. We have spent enough time building it, so it will take its own time to fade off. So there
That's
are
right.
questions about the teaching profession. There are two related ones. I'll combine them together. So someone says that they've been working as a teacher and then laying off has been happening. So uncertain jobs for the future. That is one person asking, what as a teacher, what ideas or what is the trends going around for them to uh, get their financial independence back. That is one question. The other is, with the increase in online education or the potential of online education, what are the options of teachers getting employed, people getting
Sure.
employed as teachers? Yes.
Yeah. No, so absolutely. I mean, like I said, job losses are happening across the board. Yeah. So it is worrisome for every person. And I think that's why it's extremely important that as individuals, as teachers, we stay relevant with what are the current needs of employers. Yeah. And by relevant, I mean that just because you have been teaching something for the last 10 years doesn't mean that that is going to ensure a secure job in the future. You need to figure out what is it. If you want, so for example, I would strongly suggest that if you have built your base as a teacher, it's great to continue that base, but figure out what is the demand for teaching in the future in terms of what kind of topics, what kind of subjects are require that kind of education in the future. And one of them, of course, is tech. Yeah, I cannot harp enough on the importance of tech for the future. And even now, by the way, there are a lot of companies that are hiring teachers on our platform who are all in edtech. Yeah, because all these edtech startups and edtech companies are seeing actually a huge surge in demand. Because as more and more parents and students are at home, they're realizing that, oh my God, actually, this opens up a world of opportunities in terms of education. Suddenly, you're not constrained by ensuring that your child has got a seat in that particular school or college of your preference in your area. Now suddenly you can enroll your child for for a teacher who is sitting in Bhubaneswar and you're in Bangalore, but the teacher is really good at teaching this particular subject. So again, look, think about what is the opportunity in whatever you are doing. Yes, I know there are lots of crises in whatever we are doing. For each one of us, imagine I run a jobs portal, guys.
Right.
Yeah. But think about what is the opportunity in what you're doing. Like by the way, I'm not changing. I still run a jobs portal. Yeah. But what I'm changing in is ensuring that we have enough work from home jobs, we have enough tech jobs, we have enough women getting into leadership jobs. So we have enough women who want to get back to work, upskilling themselves for these jobs. Similarly, think about what is the opportunity for your role in the future, and then start today in preparing yourself for that role.
That is an inspiring answer for this question. Thank you. Um, okay, now we have a different kind of questions, or a different questions asked from a different frame of mind. Uh, for example, there is one. I'll start with this. I feel a lot of guilt when I take the me time and don't spend time with my family. Like, they just want to know, is this common and how do you address this? probably there are some of us who would feel guilty no matter how we manage it. So how do you, this is more about the person managing themselves.
Yeah, of course. No, there's a quote which says that show me a woman who doesn't feel guilt and I'll show you a man instead. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I think we first acknowledge the fact that we all feel guilty about something or the other. We either feel guilty that, oh my God, I'm spending too much time at home, or I'm spending too much time at work, or I'm not spending enough time with my parents or with my in-laws, or I'm not meeting my friends enough. I'm not exercising enough. Like, we feel guilty about something or the other all the time. First, we need to acknowledge that, and then we need to figure out how to reduce that. Because you know what, the guilt is a pretty useless emotion. Yeah, it's not helping us in any sort of way. When it comes to me time, one thing that has really helped me is to see time from a longer horizon of period. Yeah, many times we feel like, oh my God, today if I haven't spent time with my mother-in-law, or if I haven't, cooked the best meal, like spent enough time cooking the best meal, or if I haven't exercised, then oh my God, I'm like a really bad person. I'm not being able to manage. I should give up something. Like, I mean, look, when you look at your time management, try to stretch it out into a longer horizon. Okay, so for example, if you were to see my Google Calendar, I put everything into my calendar. I put my exercise into my calendar. I put my jobs for her work into my calendar. I put my singing lesson into my calendar. I put these webinars into my calendar. I put even the kids' classes, by the way, into my calendar.
Okay.
And when I have everything in my calendar and I plan it out in the beginning of the week, okay, so on Sunday, I know what my week will look like. I ensure that I have, during the period of that week, I have got a healthy mix going. Yeah, in terms of my work requirements, my family requirements, my own personal health requirements, my social requirements with my friends, even all my meetings with my meetings with my friends and families, all on my calendar. Once I put this on Sunday for the week, and then I follow that calendar, then when that week gets over, I feel like, oh my God, this was a great balanced week. Yeah. And then when I'm doing it during that calendar period, if I'm exercising, or during the calendar period, if I'm spending time meeting a friend, okay, I don't feel guilty because it's according to plan. Yeah. I had thought through and I'm following the plan. Second, when you look at this time horizon point of view, there are also periods of time when there is huge stuff happening at work, and your topmost priority that time has to be work. Okay. For example, many times I used to say that sometimes I feel like I live life on a quarter by quarter basis. I have some quarters which are absolutely nuts at work. During those quarters, if I have to say no to all other things besides for work, I don't feel bad about it. Because I know that this quarter has to be about work. For example, quarters where we have Women's Day. Okay, International Women's Day happens every March. So I know that Jan, Feb, March is going to be a crazy quarter at work. I also kind of prepare the family accordingly. That hey, this quarter is going to be crazy at work. Yeah, so they know not to push me on all the other aspects. But the next quarter, which is April, May, June, which is usually my summer holiday quarter. Yeah, this year, of course, 2020 is a write-off when it comes to summer holidays.
Right.
But during that quarter, I know that I will not take on any crazy stuff at work, because that quarter is much more for my family and my kids. Yeah, so then during that quarter, if I am prioritizing my family and kids over my work, I don't feel bad about it. Yeah. So I think just first of all acknowledging that we all feel like this. Secondly, planning it out either on a weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis. And third of all, when you're sticking to that plan, be happy about it. Yeah. These are some key things when it comes to how do you balance your time and also manage to find me time.
Right. So that was very nice way of putting it. That is, you plan for all these in advance and account for them, give them all space according to your priorities in different times, and they will be taken care of. So cumulatively, when you look at it at the end of the year, you have done everything. You just did it in
Yes.
different priorities at different times.
Not end of day, end of week sometimes.
End of week, everything is taken care of. Well, that is a beautiful way. This is like, what is it? The time management at its what is it? A classical example. Yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, so a related question. So now we have talked about how to get things to work and all that. Now there is somebody asking, what is the key to maintain a balance of mind when nothing gets accomplished? Like office work doesn't get accomplished, house chores don't, kids school assignments don't. So what do you do with your mind? How do you balance it when things are going down?
This is, I mean, right now during this period, frankly, it feels like there are more days like that, right?
Yes.
I mean, there are more bad days than good days, and it's tough. Yeah. And mental health, mental wellness is actually going to be one of the biggest side effects of the COVID crisis. Yeah, we're already seeing that happening. And I feel over here, sometimes, we forget to be compassionate to ourselves. We are, as women, we are constantly striving for perfection. Yeah, I don't know, like there's this perfectionist kira which is in all of us. I don't know, like it comes from our childhood, from our upbringing, is it in our nature? But women are always striving for perfection in everything that they do. And there's one quote by Sheryl Sandberg where she says that perfect is the enemy of good.
Right.
Because we try to be perfect in everything that we're doing, we forget that, sometimes good is good enough. Yeah. And we beat ourselves down saying that we didn't do a good job at this, we didn't do a good job at this, we didn't do a good job at this, when we actually need to say that, hey, you know what? This also got done, this also got done, this also got done. It wasn't perfect, but it's fine. Yeah, it's done. Okay, so one, we need to stop this, this battle for perfection in everything that we do. We have to pick and choose. Secondly, sometimes we need to talk to ourselves the way we would talk to our best friend. Okay, we are much harder on ourselves than we would ever be on a best friend. And you need to start being a friend to yourself. Okay, so you need to actually sometimes imagine yourself talking to a best friend who's in that position. Yeah. Supposing that best friend hadn't had a good day and she felt like she hadn't done well in this, hadn't done well in this, hadn't done well in this, what would you have said to her? What is the advice, the counsel, the support that you would have given her? Would you have helped in picking her up, or would you have been pushing her down? Yeah. And the same way as you would have spoken to her, start speaking to yourself. Yeah.
Right.
Let's all be a little bit, first, let's all be a little bit nicer to ourselves. Let that voice in our head be a compassionate voice and not a critical voice.
Right. Uh, with this, I also go ask you now. We would come to a manager's perspective of what the person is asking is. We are in contact with our team on a daily basis. Like you had stated before, the bonding and all that will take a back seat, or there has to be extra effort for that. So they're asking, how do you hold your team together, motivate them, and how do you ensure that stickiness?
Yeah, that's extremely important, and I'm glad that you're asking that question as a manager, because it's a good thing that you're thinking about it. Yeah. So I think we have to be a little bit, do a lot of over communication during this time when we can't physically be with our teams. Yeah. So first and foremost, we need to ensure that we are being supportive and empathetic to their needs, while also taking care of what are the company's requirements. Yeah. So it's a very thin balance, it's a very fine balance that we need to walk on between what are the needs of our teams and what are the needs of our companies. Because frankly, only if the company survives and thrives will your team be able to thrive in their careers as well. Yeah. So one, we need to be supportive and empathetic, and we need to push them and challenge them to achieve the company's goals. Three, we also need to realize that while it's very important that we are ensuring that the work gets done, we need to be able to continue that connect with them on an emotional, personal basis. Yeah. So, reach, like, I mean, say on a monthly basis, doing a one-on-one at least with each person of your team, which has nothing to do with your work. Okay, it can literally be done as a virtual coffee chat, where both, you know, bring the coffees to the Zoom call and not
Okay.
the laptops, and they just chat on, hey, what's going on? How are things at home? How are things with your parents? Like you would with your friend. Okay, so that you can build that bond with them. Third is that to do that bonding from a team basis also. So there are a lot of, for example, online games and challenges and quizzes, etc., that you can do, which is just to get that fun back in your team. Yeah. So to schedule a joint call with all your team members and just play something fun. Yeah. So that everybody enjoys together. Fifth is from a manager point of view also, is to ensure that your team members are following similar kind of rules with each other, which is that they are being supportive and empathetic to other people's needs. They're still making sure that the company's goals are met. Yeah. And that they are ensuring that they are spending some time in doing these engagements, social bonding with their colleagues as well.
Right. That answers this question. Um, before we, okay, it is like this. Okay, there are some people who are asking. Somebody is asking. They have anonymously asked that they have a hard time entering the IT industry. What can I do for that? Is there a way I could find a mentor?
Oh,
Okay,
of
so
course, that's
yes, but they've asked it
I mean,
anonymously. We would request them, if we would share some contact details towards the end where people can reach out to. Yes, so over
sure,
to you.
absolutely. So we have actually launched a platform called HerTech. Yeah, if you go to jobsforher.com/HerTech, HERTECH, that platform we specifically launched it during COVID times because we saw that we have to make sure that more and more women get into tech. Yeah, because if that is the future of our jobs and that is the future of products and services that are going to come out, we need to ensure that there's an equal participation of women in that. So as part of HerTech, by the way, we are working with a lot of different partners in offering a lot of free courses for women in technology. We are also doing a lot of free masterclasses on a weekly basis. We're doing a lot of meetups. We are putting out challenges for women to be able to showcase their skills, and of course, there are job opportunities. But that actually comes last. It's the other stuff which is extremely important from a career development point of view. Also, besides for HerTech, I mean, if you just look online, there's a huge number of online courses that are available. So the first step really needs to be in upskilling yourself to be able to get into tech. And second would be to be able to get some sort of work experience, even if it is an internship, even if it is a project, that you manage to get, but to get some hands-on experience is very important.
Thank you. So now we'll ask you a very open-ended question. We have another 10 minutes, so you can take this whole 10 minutes for yourself. So tell us some success stories and impactful anecdotes from Jobs for Her. Like we want to hear the story from you.
Sure. Well, yeah, there is definitely a big number of them. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry, that is working from home.
Right.
that was my son looking for his iPad because his class is going to start soon and he doesn't know where it is. All right, so I mean, there's so many success stories that I don't know where to begin. But let me give you the stories. So we look at the different women on our platform across 3 different cohorts. Yeah, one are women returnees, second are women in tech, and third are women in leadership. And I'll tell you why each of those cohorts are important and a success story from that. Yeah. So women returnees are extremely important because in India, out of 100 college graduates, 40 of them are women today, which is incredible. And I'm sure you'll see this in your classes also. But out of 40 college graduates, only 8 pursue a career. And out of those 8, 4 of them drop out within 3 years, which means that you have only 10% of your educated, qualified workforce, educated, qualified women folk are in the paid workforce today. And I want to stress on the fact paid workforce because pretty much every woman is working anyway. It's just some are getting
Right.
paid for it and some are not.
Yes.
Yeah. So it is extremely critical that we manage to get more and more women returnees back into the work. And here, like, I would like to share a story of one of the women on our platform, okay, Vinuta. She actually got back to work after a 12-year break in her career.
Oh, okay.
And during that 12-year break, okay, and of course, and this is a very common phenomenon that when you ask a woman how long her break is, and then you ask her how old her child is, they're usually the same. Yeah.
Right.
So she, stopped working when she had her first child, and then pretty much became a full-time mom for the next 12 years. Now, once her older kid became a teenager and she had another one also, she realized one day, she felt that, you know what, I have devoted my whole life for my kids. But today, I feel like they respect their father more than they respect me. They listen to him far more than they listen to me. And she's like, and I'm just not a happy person because I feel like I have made this big compromise for them and they are not, appreciating and valuing me. And and then I realized that maybe it's me. Maybe I need to figure out a way for me to feel happy and fulfilled with myself because that is what then my kids will actually respect. And that is what I want my kids to learn as well. Uh, so, um, so what she did was that she decided to get back to work. But of course, after a 12-year break, it wasn't easy to get back to work. Yeah. Luckily, she found out about jobs for her. She reached out to us and she signed up for a volunteer program. So at Jobs for Her, we have a volunteer program where any woman who wants to get back to work, we're happy for her to come and be a volunteer for 3 months. Okay. During which time, frankly, what happens is she regains her confidence. You
Right.
know, because that's the only thing that is really keeping women back from getting back to work. It's this huge loss of confidence that you go through when you're on a break. So when Vinuta came, she volunteered with us. She was part of a lot of different teams during the 3 month period. And she realized that she has a big love for PR, which was something that she was doing 12 years ago.
Okay.
Okay. So she managed to get a job in PR then, and now she's in fact heading public relationships for a very large international school in Bangalore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was Vinuta. Let's move to women in tech. Yeah, so the reason why women in tech is the other important cohort for us is because if you, like I said, if you look at the jobs of future, they lie in tech. Yeah, but if you look at the number of women in tech roles in India, we're at 20% participation, 25% participation. Yeah, if you look at your top 5 tech companies in the world, Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc., Microsoft, they have 20% women in their workforce. You know what this means? It means that all the products and services that we are building, there are 5 times more male engineers working on it than female engineers. That is going to hugely impact us and the future generations. Think about the artificial intelligence that we are building. We are biasing it from day one. Okay?
An
So that artificial
important.
intelligence will also have all the gender bias. In fact, Google realized this problem when it realized that the Google translator, whenever it was translating, say, Spanish to English, for doctors, it was saying he is a doctor, and for nurses, it was saying she is a nurse.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, this is the bias that we're feeding into AI if we don't have enough women who are also helping in building that. Yeah. Over here, I would love to share the story of a woman called Harini. Yeah, so Harini was a complete techie. She graduated with flying colors in her universities. She worked for a few years, and then, again, in her case, actually, mobility is what's strong. Yeah, so in Minuta's case, it was more motherhood. In Harini's case, it was more mobility, where her husband's job got them to move, to relocate to different cities. And in that new city, she got so busy in terms of settling down her family, the new city, getting used to all of that, that she stopped working. Now, so she moved, she was a Bangalore girl who moved to Bombay. Yeah. Now, when it came time for her to, like, when she started feeling that she wanted to get back to work, and she was a techie, she felt completely outdated. Sorry, that's my son again. Just 1 second. So she felt completely outdated because, especially, and that's a very common thing when it comes to women in tech. Yeah. Um, where, suddenly she felt that all the new technologies that people are talking about, she doesn't know it. She knew stuff from 3 years ago. And in tech, 3 years is a huge change. But she was determined that she wants to get back to tech. And which is why she started upskilling herself. And she upskilled. She applied for the returning program at PayPal. Okay, so PayPal had a returning program for a period of 3 to 6 months. I forget, I think it's called Recharge. And she was one of the members of that cohort that got in. And she did so well in the returning program that she has now joined PayPal as a full-time employee. And she's been getting promoted every 6 months, being assigned some of the most challenging work at PayPal, and is continuing to upskill herself during this journey. Like that fire that she had has actually continued to burn inside to now leapfrog into higher roles in her career. Yeah. And the third cohort of women that I'd like to share about is women in leadership. Because again, to tell you why is the data. Yeah. If you look across companies, companies still start with 30% women at the entry level, but that drops to 10% of the management level and then 1% in the C-suite. Now, we strongly believe that till you don't have more women in leadership positions, more women in those decision-making positions, the changes that we need to see in companies will not happen fast enough. Yeah? Because only a woman will realize the kind of environment that you need to create in a company to, one, attract more women, retain more women, and make more women rise up the corporate ladder. So, which is why we're working very hard in ensuring that we get more and more women to climb that ladder. And we have, in fact, started a women leadership club called Her Key, okay, which is specifically for women with, say, 10 to 15 years of experience who want to rise to those leadership levels. Now, over here, for example, there's a woman called Simi. Simi is the AVP of DNI and HR at a very large multinational company. Yeah. She actually has grown up children. She has never taken a break in her career. She has worked all her life and risen in her career, but she is feeling like she is touching a glass ceiling. It is becoming very difficult for her to be able to break through that glass ceiling and move upward. And there's this almost this feeling of resignation that is setting in, where she's feeling, is it really worth all this trouble to go against the tide and break that glass ceiling? Now, Simi really requires the support of a lot of other women to make her realize that it's good for her to be ambitious. Yeah. It's good for her to own that ambition and then to work towards that ambition. Because otherwise, she has started to feel that maybe it's not worth it. Yeah. Maybe she should just be happy at the level she is at and not strive to go higher and higher. And because of that, Simi has now had a conversation with her boss, okay, to ensure that she is getting the kind of challenging assignments that her other colleagues are getting, so that she can prove her mettle and climb up the ladder further. She is also now asking for positions which will give her the visibility with the senior leadership team in her company when they're looking at the next promotions and next bumps. So all these three cohorts of women have very different challenges.
Right.
When it's women returnees, it's a challenge of regaining your confidence. When it's women in tech, it's a challenge of upskilling and reskilling yourself in the latest technologies. And when it's women in leadership, it's to actually build very strong networking, strong leadership skills, okay, and strong motivation to break through that glass ceiling. But I am really hoping that, you know, in this generation, we will be able to ensure that we get 50% women participation in the workplace, 50% women in tech, and 50% women in leadership.
Amazing. It is, it does. There are a number of examples that make us hopeful that this will happen. For example, the enrollment ratios in some colleges for higher education and all that, they do have a positive thing. What came very shocking is when you told us that while building artificial intelligence and programming computers, if this bias is programmed into them, then we'll have to live with them for the, you know, the future. At least now it's in the minds of the people and it can be changed or something. Even if machines start behaving that way, then that's a very bad thing to have, and we are at the doorstep of such things. So it's amazing work that you're doing. That's one thing for sure. There are people who have asked for what is the website address. Now we'll reply to them. It's Jobs for Her. You can Google it. There is also, it is also mentioned in the chat. Somebody has just pasted the link for Her Tech. We, eVidyaloka, are an NGO who are led by Brinda, a woman CEO, and we have been going strong. I'll just take a minute to tell you about what this webinar is about. Like, these are called Back to eVidya series in two contexts. That is, one, people who know us, you get something from people like Neha, who have something very valuable to share. You get it in the model that we have been always working, that is online, through calls like this. eVidyaloka teaches kids in 237 villages in this model. So that is one thing. So Back to eVidya is, we are just, this is a demonstration of how we do it while we have very valuable insights and learnings coming up. Another context is that this COVID pandemic has put a lot of children at risk of never returning back. Various factors are playing their roles, and we just might not get these kids back to school and continue education. I mean, they were already hanging by a thin thread, and we were a lot of people were putting their efforts to keep them in school. So to bring them back, we have started a campaign which is also called Back to eVidya. We want to bring them back to these digital classrooms. And why we say digital classrooms are important, in these villages, these digital classrooms are the portals for them to have a teacher. In many cases, if not for these computers sitting there and a volunteer teacher teaching through the screen, the children have no teachers. So I'll paste the link of the Give India campaign that is going on, which is also called Back to eVidya. Please have a look at it and spread the word for us. Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Neha. It was a great session, a lot of learning. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. It was really lovely interacting with you. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you.